All right. Well, hello, and welcome everyone to our BG5 Live. Great to have you all here live in our Zoom room, or if you're watching via the recording, or if you're watching us live via Facebook. A big, huge welcome. Today is February 9th, 2021. This is episode number 91. And today we're going to talk about revolution. Talking about a revolution. It is trait 49 in quality 3. We're going to be taking a look at popular discontent leads to revolution. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So before we get started, let's say hello to our panel. So let's start with Natalie. Hey, Natalie, welcome.
Hi, welcome everybody. Glad to be here.
Great to have you here. Welcome. And let's go to Anna. Hey, Anna, welcome.
Hi, glad to be here. Glad you're all here.
Great to have you here. And let's go to Linda.
Hello, everyone. I'm also glad to be here. It's really feeling like a party every time.
I should have put Natalie made a snowman. I should have put the snowman in our presentation so we could show everyone. It's a
yeah, because we have
snowed
snow
in the
Netherlands. It's big
Amazing.
news. Yeah.
And then you know what? The children of today don't even know how to do a snowman. So all the grown-ups go out, snow, because we are so happy from our childhood.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah, really, really great snowman. So I love what you shared. Beautiful. All right. Well, let's jump into today. Oh, and Moxie has to say hello, of course. Say hello. Hi. And of course, Moxie. All right. So let's take a look at what we're going to be taking a look at today, which is trait 49 in quality 3, popular discontent leads to revolution. So to get a feel for where we are, again, we're starting the journey of mind through emotions. Again, February is emotional. So again, if you've kind of felt emotionally tired, emotionally stressed, feeling some kind of emotion, it's probably because it is currently activated. We can see actually not only are we in the 49, but the 1949, which is the strength of resources, is actually defined right now as well. So we're going to be talking a lot about this. We also have, again, we can see there is the 19 here, the 19 and the 49. Again, the strength of resources. So the 19 is actually defined in our values, also in our law and discipline. Remember, we took a look at the 19 not too long ago, only a few weeks ago. So as we move through this, phew. I knocked over my coffee. Luckily, I finished my coffee, so there's nothing in it. Good. So
third line day. Yay.
Yes, exactly. A little trial and error here. So last week we took a look at, as we began February, we began the listener and the 13, right? The hearer of secrets, the fellowship of man. We are now moving into principles in the 49. This is revolution based on principles. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Again, as we take a look, we can see next week we have the surrendering, the surrendering of the fates. So it's interesting. We still have the 41 here. It's actually going to connect up with the 30 here with the surrendering of the fates. So we'll have it's also creating definition here as well. And we'll be moving into spirit in the 55, right? The abundance is a matter of spirit, and family and friends in 37, the tribal connection to others. So again, all of these traits that we're moving into over the course of this month are all emotional. So just be prepared. If you're emotional, it's part of the whole process. So I brought this in. We had this last year, kind of starting the year off right at the beginning of the new cycle. We talked about this before with the win, being the 41 when we moved into the dreamer, the start codon, right? The patience, Patience is great virtue. Then we took a look at the 19, right? The 19 is defined now as well with the social needs, the final thrust of pressure and entering a new cycle, right? The last trait of transformation. Last week, we took a look, whoops, where did it go? We took a look at the 13, right, of the listener. Oh, this is all out of order. This is really good. Okay, let me just pull it all up. The trait 13 of the listener, listening from the past, right? This is the first trait of initiation, purpose fulfilled through the mind. And we are now in trait 49, principles and revolution, the tribal emotional wave. This is purpose fulfilled through the mind. Again, you can see we had the 19 recently. We now have the 49 defining this particular strength. And next week, we're going to be moving into the 30, where the fates take hold. So we're going to, again, complete the 41 with the 30 to create the strength of imagination. So it's very interesting that these traits are, right next to each other and really starting to define this emotional intelligence as well. So today we're in the midst of revolution, if you will, and again next week we'll take a look at the fates taking hold. Anything that any of you would like to add?
Yeah, I would love to know what Maxi is doing, like right in front of the camera and bumping over your microphone and.
She's revolting.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Trying to be the star.
Right, exactly. She's asleep all day, and as soon as I get on BG5 Live, she has to take part.
Yeah.
All right, so let's explore what this 49 is all about. So when we take a look at the 49 is about principles. So ideally, the transformation of forms based on the highest principles, not simply for power. And sometimes there can be a revolution based on wanting power. Ideally, it's a revolution based on higher principles and not simply for power. Knowing what and who is needed or not for the community. All right. We were talking about this today in OC16. This particular trait is also the trait in a larger organization that's responsible for firing as well. So again, knowing what and who is needed or not in the community is part of the role of the 49. This can also be the fear of rejection, because you don't want to be fired. You don't want to be let go. You don't want to be excluded from the tribe. So it can be this fear of rejection. And this is rejecting or accepting something or someone based on their alignment or not with your principles. We see this a lot in the world right now, where everything seems very divided. And are you aligned with what I believe and my principles or not? And people being rejected if they're not aligned with certain principles or others. Right. So it's an interesting thing to take a look at in the dynamics of everything that's happening in the world today as well. If needs are not being met, it is time for a revolution. So on the other side, when we take a look at the 19 is all about needs, and it's the social needs. And if social needs are not being met, then something needs to happen, and that's what brings forth a revolution. So if you're feeling like there's tension in the air, if you're feeling maybe a little bit tired, if you're feeling like something's off, if you're feeling like a bit emotional, I think it's part of what's happening right now in taking a look at this definition of principles and taking a look at what are our needs, and are those needs being met or are they not being met? So I would love to hear from our panel, and of course, any of you in our either our Zoom room or Facebook Live, if you have any comments, if you have this particular trait, we would love to hear from you as well. So who would like to start us off? Would you like to start us off, Linda?
Oh yeah, I am guilty to all charges. Oh boy. Now everything falls into place, because I really feel that my needs are not being met. I'm really feeling I all the time with all the restrictions, I was calm, positive, and I was thinking, okay, we'll get through it. And now I'm really starting to feel that I miss the social gathering, to go dining, to go outside after 9 o'clock, and not being afraid of entering into a police agent or officer, and really feeling more fatigued, more unstable. I am really cool myself. My emotional intelligence is open, not having an emotional wave, but and also really feeling the emotions of the world. I really sense it with all my friends and my family, that my mom also, she said, well, and normally we would go to a garden center, or we would go to just have lunch together, and lots of people are afraid for the virus, etc., so they don't want to meet. And she says, well, it has to become spring. And also with principles, because you already mentioned the division in the world. It's really, our government has some principles about how everything has to be arranged, but it's not what is needed, in my opinion, for the community. So I really, they are already fired, so we cannot fire them at this moment. But I really want to get rid of them. I feel a revolution in myself, because my highest principles are freedom. They are not, that's not being met. I am not free. I'm not feeling freedom to act and to do as I would like to. And I have never felt that before. So it makes me emotional. So
yeah, interesting. And you were talking about the emotional wave too. Since the 19 and the 49, creating the strength, it is defined. And so even if you don't have emotional intelligence defined, you may feel a buildup of emotions. This is a wave that ratchets up. So it ratchets up, ratchets up, ratchets up, ratchets up, and then can explode. So again, if you're feeling in a sense that nervousness, or that sort of like something's happening, there's sort of like this ratchet up buildup of that wave. So it's just something to be aware of. Again, not to take it personally, just to be aware of it, to be able to sort of ride the wave and see the wave, because this may not be a wave that you have defined. It's not a wave that I have defined. And so it's going to be interesting to watch that over the course of this week too, just with the world and what's happening. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Linda.
Yeah, and you could even hear the wave building up in Linda, and actually it's kind of exploding. Like the ratcheting up is like, okay, but you still take it. You don't speak out. You go like, well, okay, whatever. And then something else happens, and it's kind of in the same type of energy, but you still take it. Okay, I'm not going to say anything until all of a sudden the last drop, and maybe the drop itself is not that big, but because you've been building up and holding in, that's where it really gets triggered and exploded. It's also sad that this is one of the most intense emotional wave there is, right? So
yeah.
and that's what we're feeling, and we have it, as you say, the full strength. Imagine the whole wild world is kind of tired with it. So I'm curious, we're still in the more personal qualities. What will happen, tomorrow, the next day after, when we go out there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think you're spot on, Natalie, too. It's that, that last drop, like you were talking about. It's there's a saying that says the straw that broke the camel's back, right? It's like one last straw, and it's like the last straw. That's another saying too. It may be really minor, but it may be minor, but it's what has everything explode. So again, it's just being aware of that. And again, the fact that it's defined within the background frequency has, whether you have it defined or not, has us all play a part of it as well. How about for you, Anna?
Well, I was thinking about a couple things. On a personal level, I've had 3 conversations this morning about messes. My daughter had her landlady is sort of infringing on some agreements, and she was freaking out, of course. And I just said, well, that's not right. It's just not right. And here's ABCD, some things you can do legally and, just to stabilize yourself. And then a couple other things similar where there were these subtle infringements that kind of are sticky, messy, a little bit like, wait a second. And that's what happens in change, in transformation. The old order is not clear. So there's these things that, like all of you have been saying, sort of creep up in little tiny increments. And then your body's getting upset and destabilized and your emotions are getting triggered. And at some point you have to say yes or no, which is a really big thing in our decision-making strategy. But it takes a certain amount of tension, pressure, to get to the point where it's identifiable. No, this isn't right. No, my insurance company this morning, no, that's not right. And so there's this process. There's also, February to me is a fascinating month because it's a pre-spring restlessness in the cycle of things. And it's not really very identifiable yet. It will be, at the end of March, everybody will be sort of feeling the change of seasons. But this point is this restlessness of things waking up. And on a bigger scale, we're waking up to a whole lot of things that are changing, that are out of date, that we're moving into, and we're sort of trying to figure out where we stand and what's correct. And I was also thinking about, in terms of revolution, there's a huge revolt going on in India right now around the farmers. And if you think about the basics of revolution and power and principle, one of the biggest things that you can cut off if you're after power, if you're want to control a community or a state or a country, you cut off the food supply. And the farmers are revolting. I think that's fabulous because that is a basic principle. When people are fed, there's peace. And when people are not fed, there's this panic and discontent and all of the rest of it.
Yep, exactly. It's very interesting. We were taking a look at both the 19 and the 49 when we were taking a look from a large business perspective. And the 19 is about the contracts, right? Is making sure that the agreements are understood so that everyone has what they need. But if the contracts are, like you were saying, sticky or icky, or somebody doesn't fulfill on their end of the bargain, it's very tribal. So it's all about the bargain. If people aren't fulfilling on their end of the bargain, that can cause a lot of discontent. And again, as Natalie was saying, you'll put up with it, you'll put up with it, you'll put up with it. And then finally, not anymore. And that's where the revolution can happen. That's where the firing can happen. So it's really fascinating. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Anna. It looks like we have some comments. Are there some comments, Natalie?
Yes, there are. Let's see. So yeah, little It's yeah. So an interesting trait during the impeachment trial. That's probably America now, and also in Myanmar. I just thought of it. There's this revolution going on as well, right?
Oh, right,
And,
right.
So yes, freedom, and then also about understanding purpose fulfilled through mind and not the heart. What is that, right? Was a question. So I don't know if we want to go into that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's very interesting, even this is the quarter of initiation. And so if you were born in this particular quarter, this is fulfilling purpose through mind. Again, I find it very fascinating. You would think it would be through heart, right? Because it's connected, or through emotions, because it's connected to emotional intelligence. What's very interesting is the logic side is connected to bonding and connecting, and the the purpose fulfilled through mind is on the other side. So it's just kind of the way that everything is laid out. Yeah,
Wait,
and then
another type of Moxie. Sorry.
and then I see that Beth was saying, what if the breakdown is necessary to step to the breakthrough? And what if the breakdown is necessary to the breakthrough, right? Having that strength too. And I believe that's true. Sometimes people won't change unless it gets so bad, right? That there is no other choice. And sometimes there is no other choice but revolution. If you take a look at the different traits leading up to this revolution, again, as Natalie was saying, we're in quality 3 right now, so it's still more personal. It's kind of like the first part of these principles is like making sure that every other avenue has been exhausted before you take action. And today, we're actually in popular discontent. This is the pioneer. This is, where the trial and error process. This is where, the popular discontent is rising so much that all of a sudden, on the other side, where it becomes much more interpersonal when we get to the quality 4, 5, and 6, right? It's more of the outward expression of it. So this popular discontent, the elevation, is the potential insensitivity to reject failed principles or relationships, the ability to destroy antiquated form once restrictions have been removed. On the other side, we have the challenge, which is the insensitivity to rejection and rejecting, the savageness in eliminating the old order that may permanently scar the new. So we're still in this time of like, okay, sometimes again, things need to break down before you can break through, but you can see that there's a pressure that's rising. This is connected to the drive and stamina, which is a pressure function. It's kind of like the pressure builds, the pressure builds, the pressure builds, the pressure builds until you can't hold back the pressure anymore, and something has to give. Right. So you have to have the breakdown in order to break through. And right now we're in this sort of popular discontent where, the ability to destroy antiquated forms once restrictions have been removed. Right. We may not have the restrictions removed yet, but people are getting, just like what Linda was saying, feeling more and more confined, feeling like there's more and more restrictions, feeling like there's more and more of our freedoms that are being taken away or taken advantage of, or more and more that contracts that we've had in the past are not being fulfilled on. Right. So, the pressure is building here. And so the quality 3 is right in the middle where, again, we start to feel like something is off. There's this popular discontent that ultimately leads to the revolution.
And I was just going to add, when you're talking about heart, the revolution, the pressure from drive and stamina is moving into emotions, and it's usually emotions that move the energy, and then it moves into the heart, the will. You start to, once you're in that state of excitement or whatever it is, the feeling things, starting to become aware of feeling things, then that energy moves into the heart where you can say, oh, am I willing to do X, Y, and Z? You know, what's on the line here? That kind of thing.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. How about for you, Linda?
Well, I was just contemplating on that it's quality 3, so it's about experiencing things. We are really experiencing everything that's going on. So it really feels like it's now, the game is on. So I really have to laugh out loud because it's that the sentence is there, that it's about to destroy antiquated forms once the restrictions have been removed, and the restrictions are only being extended and are going to become more intensive. So I really feel that it's also about sensitivity for the needs, restrictions, and that something new has to come up, because quality 3 is also about new things. And we are really on the edge of new things, and all things are going to wobble. And you also see a division in how people are coping with the new, what's coming up, because we don't know yet what's coming up, but we feel. And what you really see play out is that there are people that are really sitting back and they just watch and they think, oh my gosh, I just want to go back to the old ways of doing. So please let this be over with. And you have people that are going to the challenge, really rioting, really are going to also, because for example, we have now restrictions. We aren't able to or allowed to go out at 9 o'clock. And there are people that are going at 9 o'clock with their car, driving around, and they are looking for police officers to be fined and to get a fine, and to challenge the system. Right. So you really see the elevation of this, but also the challenge. It's amazing to see this play out, but it's really experiencing it now.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Is there anything you wanted to add, Natalie?
No, it's amazing, and I'm just looking at the word how do you pronounce that? Savageness.
Savageness.
Savageness. So how do you see? I'm hard fast. I'm I'm like ooh, what are
holding your breath. Holding your
holding
breath. Yeah.
That's the English expression. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you know, because right now, as Linda says, in the Netherlands, it's only getting more severe. They're not being removed, these restrictions. So the other side from that is you can restrict, but then, you know, people will just, you know, and eliminate the old, but then, you know, what may be coming up may be scarred. So yeah, it's a fascinating week.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating times that we live in.
Exactly. I was really curious just because I couldn't remember off the top of my head kind of where we're headed to. I was like, that's kind of interesting. So quality 4 is platform, the political and social agenda embodied in guarantees to human rights that ensures the just and valued replacement of the old order, a potential sensitivity to the needs of society. That's the evolution. And then this is for tomorrow. And then the potential in insensitivity to take advantage of the needs of society. So that's quality 4 with the influencer in having a platform. Then it moves to quality 5, which is organization, the practical provision for the needs of others in revolutionary times, which ensures support and continued understanding, a potential sensitivity to the practical needs of others. And then the challenge is the concentration on the organization of power to clearly define to clearly defined authority, often at the expense of higher principles. The rejection of higher principles in seeking to organize others. And then in quality 6, again, which we'll move into in a couple days, the power of revolution in action to expand its support. So it's the innate impressionability that transforms the fence sitter into the committed. So what you were talking about earlier, where people are sitting back, they're sort of sitting in on the fence, they don't really want to get involved, right? This is the innate impressionability that transforms the fence sitter into the committed, the sensitivity and potential to embrace the transformation of others. And then the challenge is stubborn and often fatal rejectionism, oversensitivity that leads to rejection of principles and others as a rule.
That's Friday. So yeah.
So interesting. and then we have the fates that take hold.
And we have to surrender.
And we have to surrender to the fates. So yeah, fun week ahead.
Yeah. So we have to be careful with our expectations about any outcomes.
Right, exactly. So I think we move into the 30 on Saturday, is that right?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah, on Friday or Saturday. So that's in a sense surrendering to our expectations, because again, we can have expectations that build and build and build again. It's a different emotional wave, and that we'll talk about next week, because the emotional wave is a wave that builds and builds and builds with expectation, and then can also crash in disappointment.
I think it's also important to mention that, especially in the heightened parts of this, eliminating the old order, we aren't going to go back to normal, what we knew was normal. And this whole idea of what's normal now, what's normal gonna be, you know, whether you're looking at the past or the future, people are trying to figure it out and see what's gonna happen. And then we start getting into expectations. And I think it's really important that the one thing you can surrender to is your decision-making strategy. That we have news, we have emotions, we have desperation, we have faith, all of these states, but really it's going to be wavy for a while this week, maybe even, you know, through the next bunch of years. But the stabilizing point is our decision-making strategy. And that's what lets us say yes or no according to our principles. And that's really important, because this scarring the new potential comes when we're so frightened or thinking so hard about something that we're not following our decision-making strategy.
Yep, exactly. Really good point, Anna.
And maybe this is also maybe a time to get in contact with our emotions. Because also to me it feels like, because I've undefined emotional intelligence, but for me it's also really awareness that how I really feel about what's going on. And maybe it's also an invitation to get aligned with over time, because it is a wave. It is about emotions, about how we really feel in the end. at the old and the new.
Right.
I really feel that it's also because last time we also saw that we had to contemplate, reflect on things, but for me it feels like a continuation on a different level, on an emotional level, but really get in tune with how do I actually feel about what's going on.
Yes.
And it's a part of waking up emotions about what is going on, restrictions. I want my freedom. What do I want? What is it what I feel? What is it what I want to express? So, and also an invitation to speak your truth.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
having your opinion about your needs. And I think it's really about experiencing that today in the third line. But it's really, I really feel that it's an invitation to align with your emotions and your principles.
Yeah. And it's interesting when we take a look at drive and stamina, when we take a look at also the profit potential of that, it's about freedom, right? And when we take a look at emotional intelligence, it's about truth and about pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
And if the truth is not there, if in a sense the pleasure is not there, right, as you were talking about, Linda, and the freedom is not there, there's a lot of things that are under pressure right now. And this is how change happens. I mean, we've talked a lot about the transition from the era of planning into the era of the individual. And this is what it looks like. This is a fascinating, amazing time in history to be alive. We are literally witnessing history take place in this transition between the era of planning and the era of the individual. And it's not always going to be comfortable. We're moving from growth into shock, right? So things are going to be shocking, and what's going to have people stand apart, or to really be able to move through this, is being able to adapt, to be able to change with all of these crazy things that are happening in the world, and these things that are just unprecedented, that's never happened in our lifetime, and in some respects has never happened in the history as we know it anyway. So really fascinating times. Yes, Natalie.
Yeah, we have a beautiful sharing in Facebook from Barbara, and she has the trait 49 in the third quality in her unconscious driving force. And she says, the challenges of this energy are very clear to me. I would like to add that I have become aware of the fact that sometimes my savageness was too much and was caused by my beliefs that I was rejected by others. And because it is unconscious, it was very hard for me to grasp this. But the experience has learned me to become more aware of these thoughts that cause the emotional pain of rejection. So I think that illustrates beautifully, like, what it can, how it operates, right? We are now projecting it out into the world, but you can have it in your own design as well, right?
Right.
And this fear of being rejected is really part of this stream, of this emotional wave.
Yeah. And that brings up another good point too, especially if you have it in your design, but even if you don't have it in the design, you may experience some kind of rejection as well, whether it be rejection from your family, whether it be a rejection from a group of friends, whether it be rejection from, part of society. I don't know. There can be rejection that you may experience, or you may feel, or that you may see as well, especially in the next few days. So just pay attention to it. Again, as Anna was saying earlier, following your decision-making strategy, as Ra always said, watch the movie. The more that we can take a look at it and watch it unfold, versus, in a sense, identifying with it, especially if you don't have it defined in your design. It's not there for you to identify with, it's there for you to witness. I don't have it either the 19 or the 49 in my design. So it's something, if you don't have it in your design, it's something that you can be wise about, that you can witness, that you can see and experience and understand it, to get a deeper level of understanding and consciousness. Just like Linda was talking about that reflection that we talked about last week, and really gaining that understanding and the wisdom about it as well. Yeah.
And again, to jump in, yeah, you might experience rejection, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be that you are rejecting old thoughts.
Mm,
You know,
like
rejecting, you know, we already talked about, you know, the social and, you know, the bigger themes of restriction, but you're also your personal restriction. You can be rejected, as our person was talking about on Facebook, because you have these particular mindsets, and then you get rejected, and then you get savage, and you know there's this reaction syndrome that goes on. But you can also reject on purpose, on principle.
Yeah. And this, you know, this particular trait is also the trait of marriage, also the trait of divorce as well, right? So it's the making of the contracts, being, you know, intimately connected. It's also about, you know, firing or breaking that bond or divorcing as well. Yeah. So not only feeling rejection, but also the potential of you being the person who is rejecting, you know, rejecting others or rejecting the principles, right? That you don't believe in.
Yeah, and maybe it will also come as a surprise when you come to terms with your emotions, or that you are really suddenly feeling that you are angry or disappointed about how things are playing out in these times, and that you would like to break bonds, because that's quality 3 also, breaking the
Right.
bonds with the past. Maybe you come within interactions with others, you maybe suddenly see, or in the emotions of others suddenly experience that they have a point, that you wake up, that you say, but I always believed that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is different. And that brings up a whole can of worms with all kinds of emotions. So I think that's also what really plays out. And really in the rejection, I think Anna had a really great point. It can play out within yourself, because you may think about yourself, why haven't I seen that before, or why do I reject that so much? But also within conversations with others, because for myself, I really feel that sense for freedom, and I get really upset when other people are just talking to me, say, oh, I don't mind the restrictions, and oh no, and I trust the government, and then I say, how can you? But then I feel rejected in my opinion, and they also feel rejected by my opinion. So it's really also, and then it can really easily turn up in being a almost hostile conversation. You can really get upset with each other, because you really have your own point, like the insensitivity maybe for each other's opinions. It's really emotional. It's really about feelings that you both experience.
Right.
So
But then that can then scar the new, right?
And that can, because when you can say things, and then in a later stage, because you have said some things, it will never be the same again, because you just hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't meant to. So I think it has lots of layers.
Yeah, definitely.
This trait. Yeah.
Definitely. Wow. So, something to really pay attention to. I wanted to take a look real quickly at our celebrity for today. I had actually a difficult time trying to find someone. So I finally found Jim Cramer. I don't know how many people know him, but he does a Mad Money TV host. And if we take a look at what the life work theme, it's about explanation. So you are an itinerant prophet addressing the principles behind the necessity by pointing out what basic needs must be satisfied for all to survive. Sensitivity to those in need. And so in a sense, what his TV show is about the stock market and how to invest, what to be aware of. So this explanation of what's happening in the stock market and the basic needs to continue. So he's an American television personality and host of Mad Money on CNBC, and he's a former hedge fund manager, as well as the author and co-founder of TheStreet.com. So I, again, thought it was kind of an interesting example of explaining, and how he's explaining based on, the needs and what's going up and down in the stock market. So interesting perspective there. I don't know if any of you are familiar with them or want to add anything. You may or may not. Like I said, I had a difficult time finding a celebrity here. So here is our celebrity. Also, again, if you want to find out more about your own chart, you can go to the BG5 Business Institute website. You can download your career design chart, see what traits you have defined in your design as well. Also, you can get a free report or find some of the past episodes of our BG5 Live and the resources, and also check out our courses and programs as well. So we have we started our courses for this semester. Our next semester will start in May. So I invite you to check it out, and you have plenty of time to do some research and hopefully jump on board and become a part of one of our courses as well. So what I'd love to do is, I know it looks like we have some comments as well. So what I'd like to do to wrap up is just hear from each of our panel. And again, if there's anyone out in Facebook Live or here live in our Zoom room that would like to add a perspective, but really what to pay attention to, what to be aware of, and how to really be safe in this time of revolution, and to stay grounded, and to continue just to bring our awareness. What should we do in understanding this 49 and paying attention to it over the next few days? Yes, Natalie.
Yeah. So there's a lot of new comments, but it was a beautiful example of, how it can trigger you into being revolutionary or rebellious with whatever happens. So also, if you feel that urge or it happens, and then afterwards you go like, what, I'm usually not like this, right? Then at least you know that the background frequency helped you a little bit there, or helped or not. But anyway, then the other comment that was from Lisa here: rejection of actions or principles, not the other person or self, helps to delineate discernment and right action. So sometimes it is, that is maybe a good one to keep in mind for the coming days, that as Karen was reading out what we are looking ahead to. Wanted to share that.
Yeah. So the rejection of principles as well. Yep. That no longer serve. Beautiful. Beautifully said. How about for you, Linda?
Well, I feel that it's okay to feel emotions, and especially when you are normally not that emotional. I think it's really about awareness. I think that will really help us. I'm also talking to myself, because I really have to be aware that this is the background frequency. And also to be aware when you are going to a store, or with interactions, that you are aware of, that you may be a little bit more rebellious or more emotional than you should be. and also really come to terms with your own principles. What do you really feel about things? And I think going into nature, walking, listening to music, just taking a step back from the pressure that's going on to really feel how you feel about things. I think that also really helps, just to walk the pressure. The 1949, it's about pressure, walking, being in movement, and focusing on the things you love.
Yes.
For example, I love being in nature, so I just enjoy now the snow in the Netherlands and enjoy the sun, and also pondering about the springtime coming, and yeah, looking forward to new things, and also really getting excited about new things that will arise out of this. So yeah, I think that's my take on it.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I think you made a really good point too, and just recognizing the pressure and not having to necessarily act on that pressure, and then doing things that you love, walking out in nature, doing things that can help alleviate that pressure, can help you feel better as well. Yeah. Thank you so much, Linda. And Anna.
I would say let yourself move and be moved. That's part of what's going on now. And yeah, I mean, all of what has been said so far, as go to nature or be aware of what the collective pressure is, become aware of what your personal feelings are. But really, this is a moving time. It's a time to not take it all on yourself, and check in with your principles. The context, the environment, everything is changing. So you have permission right now to break old agreements and reset them. And if you're really in static, if you're really out of alignment, you're going to hurt yourself or others. The more you can live by your decision making strategy, you're going to be moved. You're going to have more freedom to know at least what your principles are.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Really beautifully said. Very powerful. So this is all a week to in a sense, like what Anna was saying, align with our own principles. What is important to us? Follow our decision-making strategy. Eliminate, that pressure is going to be there, but that pressure doesn't mean that we have to do something or act, but be aware of it. Also being aware that there is pressure, so that if you do feel off, if you do feel pressure, if you do feel emotional, know that it is part of that background frequency. There's nothing wrong with you. Just allow it to be, allow it to flow through you, so that you can witness it, that you can really experience it, that you can learn from it. This is all a part of who we are as humans, right? It's built into our very design. And so this is a beautiful way of being able to really witness what this 49 is all about over the next couple of days, as well as this whole strength of resources, this connection of the 19 to the 49. And as we move into, and we'll talk more about next week, surrendering to the fates and what that's all about as well. So it has been our absolute pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. I hope this helps support you in if I don't know what it's going to look like this week, but who knows? The world's been crazy. I'm sure there's more craziness coming up, but at least being able to view it and experience it and not get caught up in any of the negative aspects of it. And if you do, watch it and learn from it as well. So just remember to follow your decision-making strategy. And thank you all very much. And we look forward to seeing you. So thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.